Hello and welcome to the Let's Glow Show. It's Amanda Sweet, the Creative Fairy Godmother, and I help people get fly, make friends, and save the world through sustainable and community events. And today I have a very special guest. Her timing couldn't be more perfect because Paulina Petkoski is a designer, an entrepreneur, and a sustainability advocate, and it loves fashion, obviously. So I'm excited because we have our clothing swap festival happening this Saturday. So it couldn't be a better time to talk about sustainability, fashion, design, aesthetics, all of that beautiful stuff. So welcome, Paulina.
Thank you, Amanda. I'm so excited to be here.
Yay, I'm so excited to have you. So tell everybody, because right before we got on, you were like, I also do this, and I do this, and I was like, okay, I love a girl with a whole bunch of fashionable hats. Let's hear the full gambit because there's
all the hats.
There's no such thing as too much.
Yeah, I often say it depends on what room you meet me in and what hat I'm wearing at the time. Literally and figuratively speaking, but I was trained as a fashion designer. I went to FIT, the Fashion Institute of Technology. So I have 2 degrees in fashion design. So I'm a women's wear designer. I'm also a stylist for 15 years. And I am an adjunct professor at the College of Creative Studies in the fashion department. I teach a class that I put together called the Introduction to Sustainability in Fashion, which also leads me to saying that I am a sustainability advocate and educator. And I also happen to own an art gallery. So I'm a social entrepreneur and a gallerist and a curator.
Oh my gosh. It's so like you're living a dream. How did this start? I know like stories and people like you have like a bunch of million paths, but like have you always been like design oriented or entrepreneurial oriented? Like where did this kind of bubble up?
Yes. I actually have a few funny stories about both of those things. It really started when I was very young. I know that my mom told me a story that one day when she was trying to get me dressed while she was running to work to take me to my grandmother's house, that I was probably 3 or 4 years old, and I would not put everything she put on me, I would take off. I was like not having it. And so she finally just wrapped me in a towel, threw me in the car, and gave me to my grandmother. It was like, you deal with her. Like, I can't get her dressed. So I guess I had some opinions starting pretty young. After that, I really wanted to get my first sewing machine when I was very young. So I got that in high school and started thrifting vintage patterns and reworking stuff I would find at the thrift store at that point. And then separately, what else was going to say? What was the other part of the question? I feel like
always been entrepreneurial?
Yes. So then, on the other side of that, when I was in high school, I started my first brand called Charmed, and I made all these charm necklaces and bracelets, and I sold them at a boutique in Birmingham. I went in there. I put together the collection, and I asked them if they would sell them on consignment. And also, I just was reminiscing about this like last week, which is why I remember all this. And because I was thinking it's been X amount of years, like since I've graduated high school, and it just kind of hit me. And I used to sell vintage T-shirts out of the trunk of my Jeep during recess at high school as well.
Heck yeah.
And I'm still selling vintage, so many years later.
Oh, it's beautiful. I love that. I wish I was more entrepreneurial at that age, but I get this question a lot, like, how did you get into fashion? And the story that I remember is, remember the lifestyle, like my size Barbies?
Yeah.
I had the dollar store version of that. Like, it was like very like not solid plastic. It's very like easily bendable, and she had like 2 strands of hair, like very like just dollar store version. And I remember like having 2 scarves and safety pins and just like wrapping it and then unwrapping it and then wrapping it again and then unwrapping it and wrapping it again. And I literally was doing the same thing. I was like, how long have I been like interested in fashion or like thrifting and all of that stuff? And I remembered that story. I'm like, I remember doing that all the time. I would just sit there and do that. And outfits on the Barbie, take the outfits off. Outfits on the, that was like
Oh, yeah.
my playtime. It was like, dress her up, take it off, dress her up, take it off, do it differently, put stuff inside out, upside down. And I get to do that all the time. That's like what I do every day. I'm like, does this work? No, there's a
You
corner.
just reminded me too, like, I mean, when I was beat at my grandmother's, when she would watch me, she did teach me how to hand sew. So the first sewing assignment I had was 2 paper towel sheets, and then I hand stitched them and I stuffed them with toilet paper. So I made a pillow. And then I would use toilet paper also to drape my Barbie size, and then also just organizing her closet, her shoes, her accessories, all of that stuff. So I also do, now as an adult, closet edits and organizing. So I've been, yeah, I guess all of these things I've been doing for pretty much my whole life.
Yeah, I love that. I started sewing, like hand sewing and just like self-teaching the first pair of jeans that I like my thighs rubbed through. And I was like, it's like, I don't know if you remember I don't know if you remember Rave, the store in the mall.
Yeah, for sure.
The thighs would just like rub out of those bad boys, like just immediately. And I remember having one of those pairs and like making it into a purse and then hand sewing, and then begging my parents for a sewing machine. And they finally got me one on my 16th birthday. And the first time I used it was like last winter. And I took some continuing education classes at CCS because I was like, I stopped sewing because I was like, this is hard. I don't know what to do with it. And then I just put it in my closet. And I remember bringing it to Texas with me when we moved and we were coming back to Detroit. And I was like, should I just give this away? And my husband was like, never throw away a good tool. Never. Like, okay. And then we came back here and I was like, oh, CCS has adult classes. It was like $250 for 6 weeks. I made a jacket that I wear like once a month at least,
Nice.
I was like, whoa, like CCS has so many cool additional programs that I just didn't know about. I was like, this is amazing. I can learn how to sew everything here.
I love that. Sewing is an important skill to have. I mean, regardless of even if it's just like as simple as sewing on a button or, darning a sock if you have a hole in it. I mean, I think those things are often overlooked, but people will just like get rid of things because they don't know how to deal with that. And that stuff, I mean, alone are very simple.
Oh, it's simple but it also can be intimidating. Like if you look at a sewing machine, it looks very complicated, but once you learn how to thread it and what it does, I feel like that was the big thing for me. I'm like, I don't understand how it works. Once somebody showed me, Robin was my sewing teacher. She was just like, yeah, boop, 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 done. Then you can just start sewing. I was like, it's been this easy the whole time. Like, I had no idea.
Have no fear. I prefer to work on industrial machines, which are a little bit more difficult when they're not functioning right. And I don't have the school engineers anymore to be like, hey, like the machine's not working. So that's a little trickier, but yeah, it's so fun to sew. Actually, I really like working with my hands. It's very meditative. I'm a maker. I'm definitely into construction and love sewing. I've made a lot of garments, and I don't have a lot of time to do that anymore. So I think that's my biggest issue, is that like I would like to get back to that and set up a studio again. I don't have one at the moment, but I did when I moved back to Detroit. So yeah, but time is it takes a lot of time to do that stuff. It really does.
That's the part. Like when I started learning patterns this past winter, I was like, this is all geometry and math and geometry and art. I literally flunked out of geometry and art in college 4 times. And I asked my professor, the facility director, I was like, is there any alternative? I like can't. And then doing the sewing classes, I was like, oh, this is all the stuff that I didn't learn. Like the measurements, fractions, and then expanding it. I feel like I love the vintage patterns, but not they all, but the ones that I find at Arts and Scraps are generally very small. And I'm like, oh, I can size this up like 12 sizes. How do you even do that? But it's so like in depth. It's engineering. It's engineering fabrics.
Well, my dad's an architect too. So I always said, like, he designs spaces that people live in and occupy. And I kind of just got the smaller version of that in my head, where I design, things and garments for people to wear and occupy and live in. So.
I love it. And then they can go into your dad's spaces and it all connects. I love that. So I'm curious about the sustainability piece. Where is that in your heart, and why is it something that you are so adamant about advocating for?
Woo, all right. Well, it's a big can of worms to open up. But honestly, it's been a space that I've been in for, like I said, like going on 15 years. In 2010, I went on this journey to find the most like soft vintage like fabric, and I wanted to produce a collection that recreated this paper thin t-shirt that I would always look for when I was thrifting and collect. And I ended up finding a fabric called micromodal, which is a lensing fiber, and it's also modal, but the micromodal is super thin. And this was back when I was in New York, and I met a person there who wanted to start a clothing line. So we worked on developing this line, and micromodal is a sustainable fiber. It's made from beechwood trees, which really use a lot less water irrigation when they're growing than cotton, and also is highly regenerative. So it's basically a great fiber to work with, and it's natural. So that's kind of the starting point as a designer when I started, integrating sustainability into my designs. And the designs that I made were like luxury basics, basically. At the time, they could travel, they could pack well, they could go from day to night. There was like a sheared goddess dress and like a jogger pant, and they came in like black, white, gray, very kind of minimal aesthetic. It was a little more around the time of I don't know, when Rick Owens had a lot of kind of influence mainstream. And so that sourcing process and figuring out, what materials are best to use. We started then also using an organic cotton. And really that was the beginning of where I understood what sustainable fashion is. And at the time it was like eco or green fashion. It was more of a niche market, and it was a new market in the fashion space. But I mean, now I look at it totally differently. I have been researching what true sustainability looks like, and it is a lot more than just fabric and fibers and materials, but also it's a huge industry problem. And that's actually why I left working as a designer in the industry. I felt like we were really just tasked with overproduction, over designing, and really enabling the consumer to want to be over consuming. And it just didn't sit right with me. It also was burning me out. I think like being a real designer and having these aspirations to make beautiful garments, and then them going to costing and then getting watered down over time, and then just having to have that pace of like rapid output really didn't make it feel as inspiring anymore. And I realized through working in the industry, especially speaking of clothing swaps, my friends and I who worked in the fashion industry, we would have all of these samples that could not be sold and were mutilated because they were second and third round protos or prototypes. And they would just create piles of waste. And this is like very standard industry practice. And so we would all just come together and do these clothing swaps because, we were all working for different, amazing brands. And that was kind of the first time I started doing clothing swaps with people that were my peers in the industry. And from that, you just really started to see firsthand, like, wow, there's a lot of waste here. And like I said, it's not going to market. It's literally like they can't do anything with it.
Were they recycling it, or they were just trashing it?
they just get mutilated and then they would get sent away. I don't know. If we didn't take them, like if the employees, like, they say, hey, like you guys can take this stuff, or, there would be like some internal sales where you get like really discounted stuff or whatever. But, runway samples, stuff like that. So then I started to be a lot more cognizant and aware of like what this waste problem in the industry looks like, not just the overproduction, but then as a result, the waste that's resulting from that. And now, I mean, that was again like many years ago. So at this point, like I'm advocating for circular design, a circular economy, and really changing the whole model of fashion from a linear economy, which is like take, make, waste, or dump, to a closed loop cycle or circuit, which keeps garments and materials in stream, because that's a natural process. That's like how the earth functions, and we exist on the earth. So we can't like disregard those rules, because ultimately we're going to hit a major roadblock or issue. And I think we're certainly heading there. And finally, the industry is kind of having these conversations. Some larger brands are coming to the table and stepping up to some of the, things that they need to be responsible for. But I'm pretty disappointed at the industry overall for being at the place and getting to this point, when we've had some of the technologies and innovation there for at least a decade now, and getting so far away from where we even started from, which was, made to order, ready to wear, really changed how readily available garments are to people. And offshoring, we used to produce a lot more garments domestically in the United States, and now everything's been offshored to the global south or China and other places in the world that have lower production rates, cost. And it's just thrown everything off balance. Like there's so many implications from all of that, because even you think about like a lot of the carbon emissions from fashion come from transportation of goods. So you're shipping items from, over one side of the country or the world to another side.
Yep.
And that could happen multiple times, just from shipping the fabric, and then the trims, and then the finishings, and then to sew them, and then to the distribution center, and then to the store, and then, to the wearer. So the transport on these things, let alone the other, influences from this, are crazy. And so this stuff makes me crazy.
It's insane. And it's not like you can constantly zoom out. And like while you're explaining this, I'm thinking about all of the other industries that are also doing this and the hyper consumerism. And for me, when I do the Revamp Clothing Swap festivals, as the curator of these events, I can see how much waste there is just at a consumer level. Like when I first started doing the clothing swaps, even our very first one, we only had like 5 to 10 people there. And we had 10 30-gallon, what is it, like the 30-gallon garbage bags that were just there, right? So now jump ahead, 250, 300 people, and how much stuff is coming in. Like if you come on Saturday, you'll see we make a full like production line of it, because the amount of stuff that comes in, like people will be like, I'm going to run back to my car, 10 bags. I'll be right back, 10 more bags. And I think the last swap I brought my own like 30 bags. And that's like, and doing the clothing swaps is a part of the reason, like I have a problem with shopping. I know I have a consumerism like mindset, and I like get caught in the buy or caught in the sale. So I'm trying to do something about that. And even with I'll just like, ever since the pandemic, because they didn't have the dressing rooms, I would just buy if I thought it would fit, even if I couldn't return it. I'm like, I'll just buy it because it's just a couple bucks, And so just like from the host side, I'm like, the amount of stuff that I see come in and then the amount of stuff that we donate out, like we've donated over 10,000 pounds in the last 5 years.
Wow.
That's just one organization, one clothing swap that we do a quarter. We only do it once a quarter. And sometimes I don't even do it that often. So I'm like, imagine if everybody was doing clothing swaps. Imagine if everybody was sharing, recycling. I've had people tell me that they literally just will buy stuff like from fast fashion. If it doesn't fit, they'll just throw it away. They'll throw it away. And with the tags on it, I'm like, you could just give it to your friend or drop it off at a thrift store. But like some people don't even know that that is an avenue or a route. And it's insane. And and so I can't even imagine the kind of waste that's coming out of a big corporate business that's like,
and sometimes it's, sometimes it is garments, like I said, mutilated garments, or samples, but sometimes it's just actually material too.
Like
and yeah, I mean, it's crazy that, I mean, at this point that, ignorance is not bliss. Like people really need to be more conscious. And I even hate the word consumer, like, or humans. Like we talk about people as consumers. And I think that is just, if you really sit there with the word, like it just makes you feel like you're like a grub or like some like, just like voracious little creature. And it's like, we're not actually like meant for that. Like I said, we are makers, we're creators, we're innovators, we're, connectors, we're so many other things. And just the fact that that's the overwhelming term, and that up until recently, like I've just said it, we just say it, like it's just this is a normal word to use. And I really don't like that, because I'm trying to move away from that, because it doesn't even like fully represent the fact that we're, people and human first, and like human-centered design should be more at the forefront. And then getting people away to just be conscious. Cause even I say being a conscious consumer, and I feel like that's better, but at the same time, it's still already eliciting the fact that like, okay, you should be buying, consuming. And, I like things, I like shopping, I like clothes. I love clothes actually. So it's really a difficult kind of thing to sit in. And when you are more aware of how your behavior affects the planet and your community, then I think you have no choice but to change the way that you act. And so even just simply not tossing something in the garbage and contributing to, like, I think it's about 70 pounds of textile waste per person a year that goes to landfill. And some of those landfills are full, and even some of those don't make it to landfill. Even sometimes when you donate things, they don't end up in the store. They end up in these huge bales, which get, compressed and shipped overseas. Those typically go to like Ghana or other places. And, up until recently, some of them are ending up like in these no man's lands of like the Chilean desert, because there's no like proper authority or regulation. So they're just being dumped. And then you'll see like there's this image that's circulating the internet that's just like a desert, from an aerial view. And you can see like all of these, it's clothes, and it looks like a lake or something, but it's clothing. And up until recently, that just actually was illegally burned. So now that doesn't actually exist anymore. That photo is outdated, but people still reference it. And, the locals there's like a local economy building around this kind of stuff, because then there's pickers and then they're salvaging whatever they can. But there's also like toxic fumes and things, because people are burning these things without proper, ways to do so. And so just the environmental impact alone of like not properly knowing how to discard your clothing is a huge issue. And now there are take back programs. There are companies who are designing with this in mind, and it's called Design for Disassembly. So like an example of this would be like Allbirds shoes. they design those with the lower and the upper, and then some of the other components that like they want you to send it back to them. I think you get a percentage off of your next purchase with them if you've worn them out, so to speak. But then they are ready to disassemble. They go back into their production cycle, and it's technically like a closed loop company. I mean, and that's on a company brand level, so basically you need to just keep scaling that up with like, nearly every brand, or now there's other companies that are able to do, textile to textile recycling or upcycling to create, new fabrics out of even textiles or full garments to do that now.
I love it. I think on a individual level, like if I'm thinking from like our friends that are watching, like what can I possibly do? I feel like there's so many resources out there, like even at the local level that could impact, like you said, 70 pounds per person per year. However old you are, do the math on that, and like if you were just to give that to, I'm going to do a shameless plug here because I'm a new board member of Arts and Scraps. So Arts and Scraps is based in Detroit. They will take all of your old scraps. They'll take your old scraps. They'll take your cuttings. They'll take fabric. They'll take buttons. They'll take XYZ. There's places like Not Sorry Goods. They support artists and designers that upcycle clothing. So find out who those artists are and give them your old garments, and they'll turn it into a product and sell it, and it'll share in the local economy. Clothing swaps. There's so many clothing swaps out there. So I'm just like, okay, so I saw this thing and I'm curious if you know anything about it. I saw something on TikTok that was talking about those like recycling bins, the clothing recycling bins that you see like in a parking lot, or like I feel like they're always like at Home Depot or something like that. I saw something about like improper labeling and bins being not market. Like, do you know anything about those, like those recycling bins for clothing and shoes? And
yeah, so I think primarily a lot of them, I think they're blue, they're large. You could just like go dump there. I think what people might think is that they're going to charity, but those are probably for-profit, like, I don't even know what the right word. I mean, sometimes in fabric it's called like jobbers, but basically they're bailing those and selling those to the next party. So those could end up in a market overseas that are getting shipped and sold for profit. Because there's just so much waste in the industry. So it doesn't necessarily mean because you're donating something that it's going to a person in need. Because there's just a huge industry around this. I mean, this is not just like, this industry is enormous.
Yeah.
So, I mean, none of it's really great. I honestly, it even when you donate and you feel good about donating, it doesn't necessarily mean it's getting to a person in need. Like I said, sometimes what can't be sold at a thrift store in your local area might get shipped to another one or a distribution center. What doesn't get sold from there then gets, packed up in these large, square cubes that are sold then again by the pound and then end up overseas elsewhere. And then by that time, those are typically unusable garments, right? So like they're not very resellable. And so then that is truly where the waste starts to build up. And that's where we need more circular solutions. Interestingly enough, in the past couple of weeks, there's a few different bills that are being looked to pass. One is called the ACT Circular Textile Bill. And that's for like trillions of dollars to be invested in the US textile circular economy. And I'm super excited about this because it basically means that there would be a bill passed to create investment opportunities to make and fund more like companies in the US that will be able to do circular textiling. So basically, taking some of these old consumer textiles that are not wearable and then making them, at a molecular level, recycling out the poly and the cotton and then creating new textile from that. So you'll sometimes see on tags there's recycled polyester now. I think really we need to design out and eliminate virgin polyester. We are far beyond the point of needing to produce new polyester garments, but there's a lot of existing fibers that can be used for that. So I think that would be huge for the US economy. And I'm advocating on the MEDC Fashion Council to, prepare for something like that and bring that to the state of Michigan or Detroit even, because I think it's just an amazing opportunity for the economy here to create jobs and also to contribute to a much needed, burgeoning industry that I think we could totally do this, especially if there's this kind of level of, federal support.
Wow. You said a lot of things, and I want to break it down a couple of them. So one, I think Detroit would be an amazing space for that. And so if you're on the MEDC Fashion Council, I've never heard of that. I want to know more about that. But on the side of bringing it to Detroit, I feel like Detroit is it's a fashion hub, but I don't feel like we're nationally recognized as a fashion hub. The amount of entrepreneurial fashion businesses, style, and I don't know how many of these people are buying from larger boutiques and bringing stuff in, importing things in, but there's so much interest in that industry here, but not enough money going around in the industry here. So people are bringing their prices down, giving things away, there's so many, I have so many, my brain is going overload. But tell me a little bit about the MEDC Fashion Council. What is that? What do they do?
I've just recently joined, so I can't talk too much about it, but it is a group of people that are in the industry here that are working together to, figure out how to support and strengthen the fashion economy here. I'm just really personally motivated to advocate at an extensive level that I can, whatever I can do to give this industry a chance to thrive and validate what a large industry it is and what kind of share that we could bring here locally to create jobs and to make an impact, domestically speaking, because, to your point, Detroit can be that place. I truly believe that we have been that place. We've been that for the fur industry, first and foremost, many years ago. Actually, the fur industry, some of those people and that wealth, I just learned recently, also funded the auto industry when entrepreneurs started wanting to build cars. Some of the investors came from fur. And we could go back to that. I mean, obviously, we all know that we make cars and we've made cars and all of that. So we're a maker city. And, when you think about the US, there's LA and New York. I know that other cities like Philadelphia are also looking at, supporting fashion. And I think that we should be up there competing with those other places because I know that we have the talent, the infrastructure, and the history of innovation. So that's my perspective. And I am unwavering in this belief. Hopefully, in the next couple of years, things, people start to understand what I'm talking about because 100%. I know it's true.
It is. And I know that there's so many people that are on your side. And I bet there's people watching that are like, yeah, let's go. Because when you're, at least in my situation, I can only really speak for my situation. I feel like I'm in the grass, I'm in the weeds, I'm doing the work, and we're pushing these swaps forward and everybody's asking for more, but I still work a full-time job and it's not financially sustainable for me, and energy levels, it's not sustainable for me. And I need to find a way to make it sustainable so that more people can participate and also teach more people how to host large scale 100-person swaps. But, there's like I'm in the weeds. I'm doing the work. I'm grinding. I'm putting my own personal money into it, and like hearing that there is at the federal level opportunities for people like us that are doing the work in the industry, that there's money that could trickle down is really exciting and motivational, because I'm like, okay, well, I'm not doing this for nothing. Like other people see it, other people value it. It is important. Because like literally just yesterday, I was talking to my husband. I was like, why am I doing all this? I had one of those moments like, why? And it was so, like, I'm doing the classes at Tech Town. I'm working to build a business and a brick and mortar around it. Everybody's talking about how hard it is to go into retail. And I'm like, what is the reason that I'm doing this? And this conversation is just validating that I'm like, okay, I'm not insane and I'm not like doing this for the wrong reasons. So I just really appreciate that. Like, cause I had no idea. I'll just be frank. I had no idea that there was these laws getting passed. And I know that it's an issue, but I'm not a researcher. That's just like the reality. I'm a doer. I'm a experimenter. I feel like I'm a scientist when it comes to like peopling, and I'll just do stuff until it doesn't work. Or if it does work, I'll just make it better. But I know that it's impactful, but I didn't realize the level of impact that it's really making and the level of impact that we are making on a daily basis and the decisions that we have to make all of the time. So I'm really like, my brain is just like this. I can like feel it.
Yeah, no, it's a huge problem. And I mean, when you are doing the work, it is super hard. And, being an entrepreneur myself, like, I get it. Like I'm doing the work every day and it just feels like, how much of the needle are you moving? And even when I'm doing, working with a new client and I'm doing a styling appointment with them for their first closet edit, I help, like I'm a clothes mover. Yeah. Like I'm actually like taking clothes. So either they don't fit, or they're designer and they want to sell them or whatever, they want to donate them. Like I will leave the client's house with these garments. I'll set up appointments at local consignment stores that I work with. If those don't work out, I ship them to, ThredUp or the Real. So there's also like other avenues too. I mean, there's definitely a lot of like tiers of businesses, and all of these new businesses are part of like the circular economy and sustainability in fashion, because it's not just about making more sustainable garments. It's actually about making less garments. And what that term is called is degrowth. Like we need to move into degrowth and a degrowth economy. And honestly, like for those who aren't familiar with that, there's definitely things you can look up online about that, and like then move into post-growth. And like that's the future, is like planning for post-growth economy and the circular economy. And like I can't wait till we get there. But in the meantime, there are a lot of new business models that are arising from these needs. And so you don't have to just think about like your traditional, brick and mortar or whatever the case is. There's obviously like rental facilities that are, Rent the Runway or Newly. These places are different models of what the secondhand economy looks like. And this is actually some exciting news to me, is that by 2025, I believe that the secondhand economy will surpass the mass fashion market.
What?
So for the first time in, decades, like the mass market for fashion has been the biggest sector, by volume and sales, really. And I think finally, as the stronghold of popular culture and consumer behavior, like you're seeing now, Gen Z and younger, want to exclusively buy secondhand. You're seeing finally an increase in men buying secondhand, because there's statistics and reports saying that men have been apprehensive, at this level to buy not new. And so there's stigmas about that are people are finally starting to overcome. And now brands and other people are starting to see the value in being able to buy a designer product at a secondhand or, thrifted price point that isn't just buying a knockoff to give it a look. And that, the investment that you're putting into buying whatever item is that there's actually a resale value. So it holds value. So it actually can like regenerate, profit or sales like multiple times over in its lifetime, which is really great because that's part of degrowth. It doesn't mean you're making necessarily less money. It means that you are making less stuff, but you can still extract value from the things that you have that are made well. And I think that, people need to understand that. And now I can see that is becoming a little bit more mainstream.
Yeah. It's definitely, I've noticed a shift in the clothing swaps in particular of this, like, it used to be a lot of like women my age or older. I never really saw like 30 somethings and younger, like maybe like 20 something. But lately, there's a lot of like parents and teenagers coming to the swaps, like, and groups and hordes of them, like groups of teenagers that are like, we're so ready for this. They got their bags, they got their canvas bags, they're all thrifted head to toe, style to the nines, and they're like into it. And for me, it was a big shift because it was like before, it was like mom, dad, like forcing their kids to come and doing their school shopping for each quarter at the swaps. And now it's like their kids are dragging their parents and like, come on, we got to go do this. Like, and there's definitely a generational and like age shift that I'm seeing, which is really exciting. And I am so excited about that fact that we're going to get there. And I believe that just based on the businesses that I'm seeing. So I'm curious what advice you have for individuals that are interested in getting into the fashion industry or interested in getting into the sustainable fashion industry in particular. What advice do you have for them? Like, where should they start or what should they look into?
My answer would be don't do it. No, I'm just kidding. No, honestly, I would really consider like why, think about your motivation and why you want to do it and really sit and examine that, I think, first and foremost, because the industry itself, like fashion, truly in the fashion, like whether you're in LA or New York. I mean, I understand that people are doing fashion in Detroit, but I think it's not at the level at the global scale. It's a very hard industry to work in. You work long hours, you have like not great pay, and it's extremely stressful. So I would say just like first and foremost, consider really where you want to be in this industry. And, for my students, like I really tell them that you're the future of this industry. Like I'm at this point, like at a different, point in my career. And the weight and the responsibility falls on you. 80% of a garment or an item's like lifetime impact is determined at the design stage. And so a huge part of the responsibility falls on designers specifically. So I think that you just need to understand what you're signing up for.
Yeah.
I mean, aside from that, I think that there are so many other ways to be involved and participate in the industry. And I think you just have to really think about what is motivating, again, what drives you. The most exciting thing I've seen recently is a local Kickstarter by a Asian woman in Detroit named Pangu is the brand. And it's a indoor climbing women's pant that she innovated because she was sick of all these pants that weren't fitting her right, and she didn't love anything. And she's like, why is this an issue? So she developed this design. She prototyped it. She launched her Kickstarter like last week. Her goal was $8,000. She's already raised over $150,000. And she still has like 20 or so days left on this campaign. Like she hit a niche need in the market that is resonating with women. And, whether you're hiking or climbing, like, most of the space has been designed by probably white men, and she's totally shifting the narrative. She's innovating and doing this on her own. She's got community support and buy-in. And to me, like, if you're not going in to solve a problem or solve for a solution, then you shouldn't be doing it. Like, don't be driven by your ego to be a designer and have your name on a t-shirt. Stop. PSA, please stop screen printing t-shirts. It's not fashion. I'm so over it. You don't need more t-shirts. I really can't stress that enough. If you're going to do that, then just source t-shirts that exist and screen print over them, or do something more creative. Like, it's probably one of my biggest grievances, because it's just like the amount of t-shirts and the t-shirt waste that exists in the industry is insane.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Tell me the name of that Kickstarter again. Pengu.
Pangoo, I believe. And I'm just blown away by it.
Yeah. I think you're like so hitting the nail on the head with the retail class that I'm taking at Techtown right now. One of the books is Start With Why that we're reading, and it's talking about like, why are you doing this? Like, yes, what is the problem that you're solving? That should definitely be a part of the business model, but why? And I feel like I meet so many people, so many young people that will come to me. They see me doing the clothing swaps. They assume, I feel like I'm in the fashion industry by default, not because I'm in the fashion industry. I would say, moreover, I'm in the community and events industry that just so happens to do like fashionable events. But young people will come to me and be like, how can I get in the fashion industry? Da, 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 da. And I feel like their why is always, I want to be famous. I want to be a designer. And I'm like, that's not enough of a reason to go down an entire industry, go to school for it, get a loan, do all of these things to come out on the other end to try to be famous. You're not solving a problem. Like you said, you're following the ego. Like, if you're going to be famous, like, there are other ways to do that are much more cost effective. But I feel like I hear that a lot. Like, I really want to I see my name and I'm like, okay, but like, why do you see your name there? What is the reason why? How are you going to get yourself there? What fuels you? What excites you? What lights you up? What can you not do? Those are the things. If the goal is to eventually, with your name in lights, I approve the need and the want in you to want to do that. But like, we got to explore the why. We got to get curious about like, who's selling you this dream? Is it you or is it somebody else? Is it coming from the outside?
Yeah. I mean, many years ago when Project Runway hit the airwaves and this became mainstream, that's, to me, when the fashion industry had a big shift. And both like Parsons and FIT had a huge enrollment, explosion, because all of a sudden what has traditionally been a very closed, small industry based in primarily New York, in the US, now more so LA, it exploded. And the demand for being that like shiny, new rising star became popular culture. And that's why all of these people decided to start wanting to do that. The reality is that when these students graduate from these colleges, that there's not enough industry brands and positions to hire them. So, you might not have the opportunity to get placed in a design position. And typically people end up working outside of the industry after they leave school. And on the other side of that, if you decide to be entrepreneurial and you want to start your own collection, the failure rate of that is pretty high. So the reality of this is not as it seems. And fashion, again, seems like a very glamorous industry. And it's also not as glamorous as it seems. That they're selling you a dream and an aspiration, that may or may not be actually attainable. And so you need to learn business. You need to learn how to, actually create a brand if that's what you are truly passionate about. But again, I would only say doing that is something you should do if, again, there's a problem or a solution, that you are working towards. Otherwise, that whole concept is far removed. And I think the days of, listen, I worked directly with Mr. Calvin Klein. I worked at Diane von Furstenberg. I've worked with, amazing, New York based Isaac Mizrahi. I worked there when I was, in New York. These are American giants. And if younger people on here don't know who those people are, those are, the brands and the people who, like Diane von Furstenberg had the wrap dress. She changed women's workwear. Calvin Klein, redefined American fashion. And so did Isaac Mizrahi as an American kind of dressmaker. And those things are important. Now it's not about fashion. It's more about clothes and what are we doing with clothes. So, the idea of the designer is a really passé concept. Most people now work in design teams. There's a creative director. You're not just one person. You are a brand and you work for the brand, and the brand has the buy-in. Balenciaga and Demna will probably maybe not be there one day, but it's about that brand culture. And so, forget the idea that anybody cares about your name and you as a designer. They don't. And if that's what's motivating you, I feel like you should just do something that fulfills you. And then again, the people might follow eventually, but you need to have an aesthetic. You need to have a purpose. You need to have something that is unique. And with the amount of clothes that we have out there, I don't think it's as easy as it used to be to really make your mark. I mean, there's so many Instagram brands. It's just
pop up every day. Yeah. I 150% resonate with you. I toured MIT and I was or not MIT. Why is my brain farting? FIT. I toured there. I went there. I was I flew to New York. I was is this what I want to do? Because I thought I wanted to go in the fashion industry. I saw so many more people that were super passionate about it. And I was maybe this is not for me. I ended up transitioning over to automotive design. I was okay, I can I'm in Detroit. I'm going to go to a school here. There was a really good automotive design program. I was really positioned in a really beautiful way. I was the only other female in the whole department was graduating that year. I was freshman. Not only that, but I was the one and only Asian person in the entire department. So they were you have a very special opportunity here at this particular school with this particular industry, and we can see you. And I was just I don't give a fuck about cars. I did the first semester. We had 5 design studios where we had to each of the studios. There was you have 750 sketches due next Thursday. It just whip them out. And I was I don't care enough about cars.
Yeah.
I transitioned over to media communications and TV and broadcasting. I was in the first iteration of that, and it was a dream sold. It was if you want to be on TV, if you want to be a personality, if you, and when I first started doing it, I was I want to be on TV. I want to be a celebrity host, or I want to do this and I want to do that. I want to see my name in lights. That was it was kind of tickling that part of my brain. And I went down that route. And what I learned in that industry is they eat you up and chew you out, and they'll pay the next person even less because they want it more than you, and they'll work you till they can't work you anymore. And there's no industry that's going to try and make it any better because this is just the way that it's always been. There will always be a better looking, cheaper, younger reporter after you. There will always be somebody with more influence than you, more money than you, whatever. You're too
the fashion industry.
it's the same. And my sister, like, she went the news route. So I ended up going the events route because that, like, I dropped out of school several times. And every single time I dropped out of school, I was like, the first time I started hosting hip hop shows, and I was like, okay, I like peopling. Like, I do like this activity, and I'm also good at this. But like, can I be better at it by going back to school? And then dropped out again and started working in film and doing the technical side and the on-camera side. I was like, this is what I'm doing. I might as well finish my degree. But my sister went the news reporter route, and she was a producer for some of our major news stations here. And then she got moved to a couple other locations in Detroit and was then on camera. And the way they used her was so terrible. Like she won't really talk about it, but she had to hire a lawyer to leave the role. Like, it, when I think about the news industry and the media industry, it's absurd. Like, in the news industry, and I'm just going to paint a picture for you. You see these beautiful people on TV, you see them smiling every day, but they're on a contract and they cannot quit without paying a fee. So they're not at-will employees. They are on a contract. And my sister was like, my contract's almost up. I'm going to be out at the end of it. And they're like, oh no, you have another year. And she's like, no, like, I read the contract. I'm at my last, this is the end of it. They're like, no, you have another year. If you want to leave early, it's going to be XK amount of money for you to leave. She wasn't even making that much. And she was living at home, but she had to look like luxury, look like TV. And she had to hire a lawyer to quit. She had to hire a lawyer to quit. And like, when I think about that, it enrages me. And I can only imagine how much worse it is in the fashion industry because of how huge it is. I mean, like, even the news and the media industry, they're like, they're one and the same. They'll just ring you out. And the schools are going to teach you that it's a lucrative industry. You're going to get a job. You work for the local station. You move your way up. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't. And it's really, really sad that these kids are going into an industry, taking out these huge student loans to go to places like Parsons or other places. I almost said the name of the school that I went. And then they're coming out with all this student loan debt, and they're making less than they would be making at Taco Bell.
You know what? I mean, true, but like, at this point, YouTube is my favorite, place to watch people and creators and content. And I think that YouTube has really revolutionized, self-producing people about, making shows about whatever they're passionate about, obviously what you're doing here, and so many other people that I watch. Like, I watch fashion content. I watch, what are people wearing in the streets of New York? And, Emma Chamberlain, like, look at her. I mean, there's just so many other ways to do it now. And so I feel like, despite all the things that, you're absolutely right about, I just, I think that we're in a new place, and people should be innovating and finding other ways, because like, you can do a lot of this stuff without huge budgets now. And that is, I think, a disruptor to the mainstream industry, but more importantly, allowing people to connect on a real level in, places and, niche areas that they're most passionate about. Like, and I love that. I love watching girls on Instagram now and, TikTok, that are like professional thrifters, and they're putting together boxes for clients, and they're using their skills to do that. And I just saw one that was talking about like how that's mostly like a Midwest, like, female driven phenomena. And I'm like, yeah, that's a new business model too. And so these are things that are, kind of keeping me inspired, is that there are solutions, there are more tangible ways that people can, be active in these industries without having to go through the hierarchies and, the things and the path that, led me to where I am. And by no means was it a linear path either. But like, I now realize a lot of the things that I have done and had these, fortunate to have those experiences guide, how I'm able to be so productive, or how I can get shit done oops, and, like stuff like that. So it's just like, you have to just learn on your own and figure out what will work for you and your community and your audience.
I say that all the time, like the best educator is action. Like just getting out there and trying something will teach you more than anything, in my opinion, will teach you more than any book could ever teach you, any influencer, any educator. Like going out there and seeing how you viscerally respond to this experience, how your body responds, what's happening in your gut and your intuition, like all of
Mhm.
them are educators that like you will never experience until you get into the field, until you try something, until you cut up your first pair of pants or go to your first thrift store, try to sell your first jacket. Like those are all huge signs and indicators that can tell you like if this is if it feels good. And if it feels good, do it again. And if that feels good, do it again and try something a little different. If it doesn't feel good, do something different. And I think a lot of people, well, I think the millennial generation was like, go to school. You have to go to school. That's the only way that you can get anywhere in life. If you don't go to school, you won't be successful. That was like ingrained in me. Like you will never be anything without a degree.
Yeah.
And I'm just, and looking back on it now, I'm like, yes, I'm grateful that I did the education that I did. I'm glad that I went to school. I'm happy for the path, grateful for the path. But so much of the stuff that I'm doing, I did in my free time after school or outside of work and just explored and experimented with stuff. So YouTube University, hell yeah. Instagram University, hell yeah. Just try stuff. So this I could talk to you for forever.
I know. I was so excited when we did meet and I learned what you were doing. I think that what you're doing is really awesome. I'm excited to go to the swap. I am excited for, where you're going with this. And I really appreciate the conversation and getting to connect with you more.
Yeah, I agree. When you were sitting in Bamboo at an event and you were like, "Hi, my name's Paulina. I'm in sustainability." I was like, my eyes like went googly eyed. I was like, okay, like I gotta talk to her when she leaves. Like, absolutely 100% felt the same way. I'm like, I can't wait to learn more. You just have a wealth of knowledge that has just been blowing my mind this whole time. I'm gonna start like researching all of this stuff that you talked about because you introduced me to the Fashion Revolution. Like I didn't know about that organization either. Like so, there's so many resources out there and so much amazing work happening that like I just didn't know. I feel like I've been under a rock.
I mean, there's just so much to know. It's overwhelming. This is a very live wire topic and space. And that's why I'm fascinated by it. And I'm also motivated to, do what I can in it because like the reality is that the 2030 climate goals and the 1.5 degrees Celsius for like the carbon, reduction in the atmosphere is very real and urgent to me. And I feel like that is a big part of what's motivating me, whether we're getting there or not, I don't know, but we can see the effects of climate change happening, on a daily basis, no matter where you are in the world. And like I said, we have planetary boundaries that we are disrespecting, and Mother Earth is not, one to mess with. That's for sure.
Oh my goodness. I love it. Love you. This is amazing. Two real quick questions. What's one piece of advice for our viewers watching today that you have for them?
You said it best, like follow what feels good to you, follow your intuition and follow your gut. I think those are really resonated with me.
I love it. And if you want to go in the fashion industry and TV industry, go for it, but do it for you. That's the big thing for me. I'm like, don't do it for fame, fortune, because you're going to come out of the other end like unsure how you got there. But if your goal and your soul is like, I need to do this, then follow that. Follow that. I don't want to deter anybody from like doing a dream that they feel called to do. Just sharing the reality of my experience and my peers' experience. I'm sure your experience as well. So for any of you watching that are like, I want to be an anchor, I want to be a stylist, I want to be a designer, not telling you not to at all. Just saying that.
Just buckle up.
Yeah, buckle up and like get ready to change some shit.
Be a disruptor, be a part of the solution, not part of the problem. That's really the way I'm looking at it.
I love it. Tell everybody where they can find you.
I am at Instagram at my name, Paulina Petkoski, and you can find me there. I can work with you. Happy to connect, share resources, or on LinkedIn.
Yay, awesome. Thank you so much, Paulina. I appreciate you for waking up early for me. I know it's early. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for connecting. I feel like I got 2 weeks of Paulina, which I'm really excited for. You're going to be speaking at Bamboo next Wednesday about professional and entrepreneurial styling, which we're so excited for. And for those of you that are in the Metro Detroit area and are free and available this Saturday, May 11th, please come to the Revamp Clothing Swap Festival. It's also going to be at Bamboo. Bring all your old gear, anything that you don't wear anymore that's just collecting dust in your closet. Bring your friends. The more the merrier. We'll turn it into this huge clothing swap festival. There will be music, there will be food, there will be alternative activities, and then everything that's left over gets donated directly to nonprofits right here in Detroit that use the clothes for good. Promise. So yes, thank you so much. This has been the Let's Glow Show. It's Amanda Sweet, the Creative Fairy Godmother, and we will see you next week with another creative entrepreneur. And sorry, the button's real far away. Okay, bye.